Her husband Daniel was Emmy's first man, as it happens. She hadn't waited all these years for the right one, but she hadn't been able to build a relationship either. It usually ended with the first date, after which she never got a call back. When she met Daniel, the world played with different colors. They lived in a happy marriage for more than 7 years. Her spouse had a child from their first marriage, but Emmy was not burning with the desire to become a mother. Emmy worked for a blinds company, so on the occasion of March 8, they had a corporate party at the office. The men said that they had booked a camping house and that the party would take place there. There will be no banquet, but there will be kebabs, beer, and something stronger. Will there be a toastmaster? And the competitions will be interesting. Emmy joked. There will be Emmy. One of the men winked at her. The whole office had long known that they were having an affair, which they were both desperate to hide. Emmy had a secret admirer in the office named Dustin. He tried unsuccessfully to make contact with her, but she was a married woman and gave him no hope. Despite all the charm of Dustin, she felt that she could not afford to cheat on her husband, because it is not fair. Will we be with our families? Another colleague raised her voice. She was answered in the affirmative. There was a disapproving murmur of voices. Dustin smiled slyly at Emmy, but she pretended not to notice. At home, she informed her husband that they were invited to the party. Daniel rejoiced. He liked large companies. He felt like a fish in water around people. The same could not be said of Emmy. Socializing was hard for her. The appointed day came. A whole crowd of Emmy's coworkers arrived at the campground. They were noisy, talking, and laughing loudly. The woman decided she needed a drink as soon as possible to get through the evening. Daniel immediately separated from her and joined the men who were grilling meat. Emmy made sure Dustin wasn't around, and once she was sure he wasn't, she continued to mingle with the other women. The drinks were pouring in. Daniel and a couple of other people got pretty drunk that night. Even though Emmy was probably as drunk as her husband, she took him to the second floor and put him to bed while she returned to the party. Dustin immediately joined her. He smelled strongly of beer and tobacco smoke. The smell was mingled with his cologne, and Emmy found the mixture pleasant. "What do you want?" She mumbled drunkenly. "I want to give you a personal gift." He leaned close to her, and the heat of his breath scorched her cheek. "Dustin, let's not." The woman began, but his companion put a finger to her lips as a sign of silence. "But you want to. Why do you resist?" The man smiled. He was right. Emmy did want to. More than once during intimacy with her spouse, she imagined Dustin, and at night, she sometimes woke up to her heated fantasies. The man ran his hand over her thigh, and goosebumps ran down Emmy's back. She flinched and looked around fearfully. Maybe someone was watching them. But everyone was busy minding their own business and not paying attention to what Emmy and Dustin were doing. "Let's go to my place while everyone is here," he whispered in her ear. His words made the woman feel warm in her stomach. Emmy hesitated. She imagined Dustin sleeping in their bedroom. Weighed that thought against the one calling her for Dustin. She said yes. This might be her only chance to get to know another man in bed. And no one would ever know about it. After the intimacy, the woman picked up her things and raced to the room where her husband lay on the bed. After making sure Daniel was asleep, she quickly changed into a nightgown and went to bed with him. It was hard to sleep that night. She tossed and turned, remembering their heated embrace with Dustin. Then she fell into a restless sleep. In the morning, she woke up broken and with a sore head. The whole house was still asleep. Determined to perk up, Emmy went down to the first floor, put the kettle to boil, and went into the shower herself. She just needed to wash off the traces of the night before. The shower room was combined with the bathroom, and Emmy realized she had forgotten to close the door when someone came in. She cautiously looked out from behind the shower curtain and saw her lover. Dustin noticed Emmy too. She prayed for one thing only, that he would not duck behind the curtain to her, but he did, despite her protests. "Wilbeestein coming out now," she hissed, trying to push the man outside. Of course, the force was on Dustin's side, and all her attempts failed. It was like a mouse trying to move a mountain. The lover began kissing Emmy, and she succumbed to him again. The couple lounged under the hot shower, enjoying each other exactly until Emmy heard the door open again. There stood Daniel. He had just woken up. His head was heavy from the previous night's drinks, and his mouth felt nasty. His wife was not there, so he went downstairs, where he also did not find his beloved. She was found in the shower, but no longer alone. Behind the curtain with her was her colleague. Daniel could not remember his name. They didn't seem to have crossed paths with the man at all yesterday. Daniel thought slowly. He was still a little sleepy and drunk. But when it occurred to him what was going on, his brain suddenly cleared with rage, and the man threw himself at his wife's lover. The men trashed the bathroom. Emmy cried, begging them to stop. Other coworkers came running into the noise, splitting up Daniel and Dustin. The cuckolded husband loudly shouted filthy profanities toward his wife and her lover. Several pairs of eyes stared condemningly at Emmy. She stood there completely naked and defenseless. Someone handed her a towel. She got out of the bathroom and, hiding her eyes, ran to her bedroom to hide from this shame. When Daniel came to her, she saw that he had an abrasion on his forehead and a bruise poured under his eye. She cried again. Her husband rudely ordered her to get ready to go home. The woman obeyed. They drove the whole way in silence. But at home, Daniel was swearing so much that she was afraid her husband was going to have a fit, a stroke. She kept trying to calm him down, but he wouldn't listen to her, getting angrier when she barely opened her mouth. For 2 weeks, the couple did not speak. He slept on the couch in the hall, and she slept in their bed. She was ashamed of what she had done, and she had asked her husband 100 times in all that time to forgive her, but he had remained silent. It seemed to her that it was over and their marriage could no longer exist. But Daniel decided otherwise. He spent those 2 weeks pondering what to do next. He made a hard, but very important decision for the two of them. They should try to keep their family together, despite the difficulties that had befallen them. Upon hearing this, Emmy cried and threw herself on her husband's neck. Again, she begged forgiveness for the mistake she had made. From her job, of course, she left. She could not be in the company of people who saw her shame. They lived together for several more years, the first of which were insanely difficult. They both relived that moment inside them over and over again that broke them. After a while, Daniel left in silence without explaining anything. One day, the woman returned from work and the apartment was empty. Emmy was left alone. She had never been able to build a relationship. Men disgusted her, and she could not bring herself to change anything. It was bad in loneliness, but she endured the day to day, knowing that she created this misfortune. So it turned out that at 37, she was learning to live again, but alone. So that's the story. Share in the comments what you think about this situation and the behavior of the characters.